A very warm evening to the August gathering present here. On behalf of Samarpan Foundation, I welcome you all to the inaugural S.N. Chattopadhyay Memorial Lecture, this 21st of May, 2026. I am Indira Banerjee and I will be your host for the evening. Before we start the proceedings, as usual, may I please request you all to keep your mobile phones in silent mode. I would like to request Obhigda to felicitate the speaker for the evening. We have with us Justice Indira Banerjee ma'am and a special guest, Professor Dr. K.G. Suresh. Justice Indira Banerjee ma'am, everyone. Of course, our special guest, Professor Dr. K.G. Suresh. Thank you so much for honoring today's evening. May I please request our chief guest and our speaker of the evening to take the dais. Thank you, ma'am. Thank you, sir. And thank you, Obhigda, for the felicitation. Well, to commence this evening, I would like to begin with a poem by none other than Rabindranath Tagore. It is also part of Gitanjali. I shall read it first in Bangla and then in English. যাবার দিনে এই কথাটি বলে যেন যাই, যা দেখেছি, যা পেয়েছি, তুলনা তার নাই। এই জ্যোতি সমুদ্র মাঝে যে শতদল পদ্মরাজে, তারই মধু পান করেছি, ধন্য আমি তাই। যাবার দিনে এই কথাটি জানিয়ে যেন চাই। বিশ্বরূপের খেলাঘরে কতই গেলেম খেলে, অপরূপকে দেখে গেলেম দুটি নয়ন মেলে। পরশ যারে যায় না করা, সকল দেহে দিলেন ধরা, এইখানে শেষ করেন যদি, শেষ করে দিন তাই। যাবার বেলা এই কথাটি জানিয়ে যেন যায়, যাবার বেলা এই কথাটি জানিয়ে যেন যায়। And now, the English translation done by the poet himself for submission to the Nobel Committee in 1912. When I leave from hence, let this be my parting word, that what I have seen is unsurpassable. I have tasted of the hidden honey of this lotus yonder that expands on this ocean of light, and thus I'm blessed. Let this be my parting word. In this playhouse of infinite forms, I have had my play, and here I have caught sight of him that eludes all forms, all my living body and limbs have thrilled with his touch, who is beyond touch. And if the end comes here, let it come. Let this be my parting word. Let this be my parting word. This was one of Shotan Uncle's most cherished poems. In the little card on the desk in front of you, you will see the facsimile reproduction of this poem, all in Gurudev's own handwriting. So now, allow me to share a few words about Shotan Jethu, as I fondly called him. Shotendranath Chattopadhyay belonged to the 1959 batch of the Indian Defence Account Service, possibly the oldest civil service in our country dating back to 1740. Born into a Bengali joint family with roots in Borishal, now in Bangladesh, he grew up in a partitioned India, balancing academics with performing arts and football. While topping his class in Ripon School, Calcutta Presidency College, and Calcutta University, he had the time to indulge in theatre, poetry, writing plays, and even standing at the entrance gate of the East Bengal football ground, ushering people in as a life member of the club. Chatto, as Shotenjetu was fondly called by his batchmates and colleagues, was one of the fortunate few to have held positions within the department as well as on deputation that required restructuring and revival of organizations as well as the setting up of institutions and systems that help improve the efficiency of the civil services even today. Be it being part of the team that set up Bokaro Steel to steering a freshly nationalized Burn Standard Company to being the first director of the National Institute of Management and Accounts, he sure never had a dull day, especially as he continued to stage cultural activities and be involved in theatre at every station he was posted, be it Pune, Delhi, Bokaro, Jalandhar, Calcutta, Allahabad, Meerut, Dehradun, and again back to Delhi. Towards the end of his career, he was part of the core team that played a critical role in the liberalization of the Indian economy in 1991. His years at the Bureau of Industrial Cost and Prices, which then became the Tariff Commission, were possibly his swan song as he retired as its acting chairman in 1993. After retirement, he kept himself busy writing poetry, spending time with his lovely wife and son in Gurgaon, lamenting over the standards of the East Bengal Football Club and hoping Rafael Nadal wins his 25th Grand Slam. In 2013, he published his book of Bengali poetry called God Bhorechi. In 2023, he published his Journal of a Bureaucrat, aptly called Memories or Memories. He left us on 23rd December 2024, having lived a full life and hopefully with no major regrets except Nadal not winning the 25th Grand Slam and retiring before that. Wherever he is, he must be very pleased with the performance of East Bengal this year in the ISL. We are hoping for a win today as well. Shotenjetu loved debates, discussions, and discourses of any nature and on any subject. He was an avid listener and a pestering questioner. Knowledge for him would always be the ultimate power on earth, and he appreciated anyone who was willing to share it with the world. There could not be a better way to remember him on the eve of his birthday than through his memorial lecture. To the man himself, everyone, to S.N. Chattopadhyay. Today, we are definitely privileged to have as a special guest with us Professor Dr. K.G. Suresh, the Director of India Habitat Center. Thank you, sir, for gracing today's occasion. Sir, as the Director of India Habitat Center, is a hugely respected senior journalist, turned academician, educationist, institution builder, socio-political commentator, and communication strategist. He has been associated with Makhanlal Chaturvedi National University of Journalism and Communication, Bhopal, the Indian Institute of Mass Communication, Delhi, and the School of Modern Media, UPES, Dehradun. He is the founder president of the Global Media Education Council and vice president of the Indian Communication Congress. As a journalist, he has held leadership roles with DD News, AsiaNet News Network, and Press Trust of India. He has been successful in heralding visible changes in the educational institutions he has been associated with in various capacities. He is a member of the UGC expert panels and academic councils and boards of studies of several universities and national institutions. And we are extremely privileged and thankful that you, from your busy schedule, has taken out time. Thank you so much. And now, let me introduce the eminent personality who will be delivering the inaugural S.N. Chattopadhyay Memorial Lecture, Justice Indira Banerjee, ma'am. Justice Indira Banerjee, former judge of the Supreme Court of India. Ma'am is an alumnus of Loreto House and Calcutta Presidency College. Ma'am joined the legal profession as junior of the renowned constitutional lawyer Shamaraditya Pal and practiced in the Calcutta High Court in all branches of law except criminal. On 5th Feb 2002, at 44 years of age, she was elevated as the youngest women permanent judge of the Calcutta High Court. In 2013, she underwent training in judicial administration at the Civil Services College, Singapore. She was officiating executive chairperson of the West Bengal State Legal Services Authority for almost a year till her transfer to the Delhi High Court in August 2016. Here, she was the executive chairperson of the Delhi State Legal Services Authority. On 5th April 2017, Justice Banerjee was appointed Chief Justice of the Madras High Court. There, she started the Commercial Division and the Commercial Appellate Division. On 7th August 2018, she was appointed Judge of the Supreme Court of India. Justice Banerjee retired on 24 September 2022 after over 20 years of service as Judge of Constitutional Courts. She has presided over constitutional benches in the Supreme Court and decided every kind of case in the course of her judicial career. Justice Banerjee is immensely passionate about legal education and sensitization, judicial independence, fundamental and human rights and liberties, especially for women, children, and the differently abled. After retirement, she is mainly engaged in arbitrations and academic pursuits. She has been appointed Distinguished Visiting Professor of NUJS Kolkata, Bennett University, Greater Noida, and Chairperson of the Board of Advisors of D.Y. Patil University School of Law, Navi Mumbai. She is regularly invited to the National Judicial Academy, Bhopal, as resource person to address judges. For today, as the inaugural S.N. Chattopadhyay Memorial Lecture, we can think of none better than Justice Indira Banerjee to share with us her insights and opinion on a subject that is a pivotal for the development of this nation as we march towards a truly Viksit Bharat in 2047. With warm regards and a huge thank you, I would like to invite you, Justice Banerjee, to deliver the inaugural S.N. Chattopadhyay Memorial Lecture on Constitution and Nari Shakti, Rhetoric or Reality. Ma'am.
A very good evening to you all. It is my privilege to be able to be present here today to deliver the S.N. Chattopadhyay Memorial Lecture. I thank Mrs. Monica Chattopadhyay and Avik Chattopadhyay for giving me the opportunity to be here this evening. I also thank Avik Chattopadhyay for choosing the topic of today's talk, which I think is extremely apt for more reasons than one, at least on this special occasion. S.N. Chattopadhyay, or Satyendranath Chattopadhyay, or Satyendra, as I called him, was a man of Bengali literature who became a civil servant, extremely erudite, well-read, with a subtle sense of humor. And he definitely had a lot of respect for Nari Shakti. He encouraged his wife, Monica Chattopadhyay, to become an entrepreneur and a businesswoman who worked immensely for the weavers of this country, set up an export organization, and introduced Indian handicrafts to buyers abroad. And then on with his subtle sense of humor and the poetry that he often recited. I still remember on one occasion, in the context of a command made by his wife, Monica Monidi, he had recited 3 lines from Lord Tennyson's Charge of the Light Brigade. There's not to make reply, there's not to reason why, there's but to do and die. So this was what he thought about Monica D's command to him. S.N. Chattopadhyay was a civil servant and a bureaucrat. And as a civil servant and a bureaucrat, he was involved in the implementation of the Constitution. He took immense interest in the Constitution, and whenever he met, he discussed cases with regard to the Constitution and other issues. Today, I can't help but mention certain personal attributes of Shrutinda. In 2009, shortly after my own brother-in-law passed away, I underwent an operation. The day I was going through the tests, Shrutinda was there by me. Obviously, Monidi sent him there to Bellevue nursing home. That was many years ago, in 2009. But in 2003, when I was diagnosed with cancer and I was undergoing a biopsy, even at this age, at his age, Shrutinda was there at the Max Super Speciality at Vaishali, which is so far away from Gurgaon. He was there the whole day. And then, of course, after I had my surgery on 1st January 2024, he went there every day. And I thought that was quite a torture for a senior citizen like him. But he always did it with a smiling face, without ever complaining. Now let's come to the Constitution, a subject in which Shrutinda was deeply interested. He was responsible, one of the persons responsible for its implementation, and a person who also believed in women power, or Nari Shakti. The topic today is Constitution and Nari Shakti. Is it a rhetoric or reality? In India, we have an idealistic, people-oriented constitution. The aims and objects of the Constitution are beautifully summarized in the preamble to the Constitution of India. We, the people of India acting through the members of the Constituent Assembly, enacted and gave to themselves, adopted and gave to themselves a constitution which constitutes India into a sovereign democratic republic. The preamble was amended by the 42nd Amendment Act, and the words socialist and secular were also introduced. So today, India is a sovereign, socialist, secular, democratic republic, which promises to all its citizens, emphasis on the word all its citizens, liberty of thought, equality, first of all, equality of status, equality, social, economic, and political, fraternity, liberty of thought, expression, belief, faith, and worship, equality of status and of opportunity, and to promote amongst all fraternity, assuring the dignity of the individual and the unity and integrity of the nation. The words and integrity were also introduced by the 42nd Amendment Act. Therefore, it is a constitution which ensures justice to all, justice, social, economic, political. It ensures justice to women and men alike, to all. And we often forget that the Constituent Assembly, which was responsible for the drafting of the Constitution, comprised 15 dynamic women, to name a few. There were women from all we had women from all religious groups. Ammu Swaminathan, Annie Mascarin, Begum Aizaz Rasool, Durgabai Deshmukh, Dakshayani Veluyadhan, Durgabai Deshmukh, Hansa Jivaraj Mehta, Kamla Chaudhary, Leela Roy, Malati Chaudhary, Purnima Banerjee, Rajkumari Amrit Kaur, Sarojini Naidu, Sucheta Kripalani, Vijayalakshmi Pandit. They were all persons who were assertive, who gave speeches during the Constituent Assembly debates. Due to the paucity of time today, I cannot refer to all their speeches, but they stood for social justice, they stood for equal rights, they stood for social reforms, so on and so forth. While the preamble summarizes the aims and objects of the Constitution, we have the fundamental rights under the Constitution of India. The state is not to deny any person of equality before the law or equal protection of the laws. Article 14, which everyone knows about. Followed by Article 15, which specifies no person shall be discriminated on grounds of religion, race, caste, creed, sex, or place of birth. Of course, Article 15, Subarticle 3 of the Constitution of India gives the state the right to enact special laws for women and children. Then, of course, we have Article 16 of the Constitution of India, which guarantees equality and equal opportunity in matters of public appointment, irrespective of sex, amongst others. And it is probably, not probably, I stand corrected, it is because of Article 16 that I could achieve what I did. There is another important fundamental right which has been interpreted by the Supreme Court in a way that has given relief to many, which is Article 21 of the Constitution of India. The article read, "No person shall be deprived of his life or personal liberty except according to procedure established by law." If it is read literally, then this article would only mean that a person could not be incarcerated, a person could not be imprisoned, could not be denied of his liberty, except in accordance with the procedure under an enacted law. Similarly, it meant that no person could be deprived of his life without the procedure established by law. So if a person had to be hanged, then, one had to hang him as per the Civil Procedure Code and the Indian Penal Code. Now, of course, you have the Bharatiya Nyaya Samhita. While the fundamental rights are in a way a negative mandate on the state, it is followed by the directive principles of state policy. Of course, the directive principles of policy are not enforceable in a court of law. But even though not enforceable in a court of law, the Constitution itself says that the directive principles are fundamental to the governance of the nation. If the directive principles are fundamental to governance, then the government, the legislature, definitely is under a duty to enact law to implement the directive principles of state policy. Even though not strictly enforceable, there are judgments of the Supreme Court where beneficial legislations were under challenge, where the court was of the view that if the law was enacted to give effect to a directive principle of state policy, then the court would be slow to interfere on the ground of fundamental rights, because fundamental rights would have to be balanced with the directive principles of state policy. Now, what are these directive principles of state policy which are there? Article 39 of the Constitution of India, and particularly 39A, provides that the state shall in particular direct its policy towards securing that the citizens, men and women equally, have the right to an adequate means of livelihood. Article 39(1)(d) says that the state shall direct its policy towards securing that there is equal pay for equal work for both men and women. The state is to direct its policy to secure that the health and strength of workers, men and women, and the tender age of children are not abused, and that citizens are not forced by economic necessity to enter avocations unsuited to their age or strength. The 42nd Amendment Act was widely criticized for more reasons than one. But there were certain good provisions, I would say, beneficial provisions. And the 42nd Amendment Act also introduced 39A of the Constitution of India, which provides for equal justice and free legal aid. The article reads, "The state shall secure that the operation of the legal system promotes justice on a basis of equal opportunity and shall in particular provide free legal aid by suitable legislation or schemes." In 1997, the Legal Services Act was enacted. The Act provides for a National Legal Services Authority, which is the apex body. The chairperson is usually the senior most puisne judge of the Supreme Court of India. There are state legal services authorities in every state. There is a Supreme Court Legal Services Committee. There are High Court Legal Services Committee attached to every High Court. And then you have the district legal services authorities. You have legal services authorities at the subdivisional level, taluk level. One of the main features of the Legal Services Authority is it provides for free legal aid for women. No questions asked. While for others, there is an income criteria. All women are entitled to avail the services of legal service authorities. Now, as we all know, rights are absolutely meaningless unless there is a remedy. When a right is breached, a remedy has to be available to the person whose right has been breached to approach the court and to get relief. Though theoretically men and women are equal, they are actually equal, not just theoretically. But we also have to consider the reality, because a good majority of the women are confined to the four walls of their home. They are subjected to discrimination. They are subjected to subordination. They are subjected to domestic violence at the workplace. There's domestic violence at home, and sexual harassment at the workplace. They are subjected to sexual assault everywhere, whether it is at home, whether it is at the workplace, or whether it is on the roads. And of course, very recently, about a year and a half, at least in the state to which I belong, there was an incident which shook the conscience of everyone. A doctor on night duty in a government hospital on the fourth or the third floor of a building, who had been taking a little bit of rest in a room which was empty, should have been raped and brutally murdered. Fortunately, after the change of the government in West Bengal, one of the first steps taken by the new government is to set up a committee headed by a High Court judge to look into atrocities against women, including the RG Kar incident. One should not make comments without going into details, but from what one has been reading, one finds that the investigation was botched up at the early stage. Many people say that there were telephone calls from high-ups, including perhaps the head of the state. That is what is alleged. What came out in the papers was something which is unheard of in investigation, where a bathroom was repaired. The place was not cordoned off. People went in and out. And ultimately, one person was arrested and convicted. Let us see what the committee can do after so many years. I hope the committee succeeds in providing justice to all women who have been subjected to sexual assault and harassment. Now, coming back to whether Nari Shakti is a rhetoric or reality. Under the Constitution makes no difference at all between a man and a woman. On the other hand, you have Article 15, Sub-Article 3, to which I referred, which enables the state to make special laws, and some special laws have been made. Landmark legislation, I would say, is the 106th Amendment of the Constitution of India, which has recently, on 16th April 2026, been enforced. It is commonly referred to as the Nari Shakti Bandhan Adhiniyam. Now, this law provides for reservation of 1/3 of the seats in the legislatures for women. And where there is reservation, for example, where there are seats reserved for members of the scheduled caste, 1/3 of those seats have to be reserved for persons belonging to the scheduled caste who are women. Today, we perhaps have only one chief minister who's a woman in the entire country, subject to correction. Apart from Rekha Gupta, I don't think there is anyone else in India who's a chief minister. There is only one judge in the Supreme Court of India who's a woman as of now. Thankfully, next year, we will have the first woman who will be appointed Chief Justice of India. But then she's been given a short tenure. A question is often asked to me that why is it this way? Now, constitutional rights are really of no use unless the people change their mindset. There has to be a change of mindset. You have to give women the opportunity. Now, I see empowered women in front of me. My Didi sitting right in front of me, Dr. Sharda Suri, who's nodding her head, is a doctor. She also had to sacrifice her career to some extent to travel with her Fauji husband, Colonel Vijay Suri, from place to place. But wherever she went, she set up clinics. She even rendered free medical advice and treated the wives of Jawans and many others free of cost. I have sitting in front of me a young lady. I'm getting old, so I keep forgetting names. Please. Pooja, who has cracked the what examination? The UP Public Service Commission examination. There are many more. Where is that young girl there who is incidentally the daughter of the attendant attached to me from the Supreme Court? She has topped in 3 subjects from her school in the class 10 examination. And her photograph and her name have found place in the school notice board because of her performance. Many others, almost everyone here, every lady here is accomplished. But you have to give them the opportunity. You have to give them the education. Now, if Nari Bachao, Nari Padhao is implemented in its true spirit, I'm sure in the near future, much of the gap, much of the gender discrimination will be removed. You know, there is a Chinese proverb which says, when the sleeping women awake, they shake mountains, they move mountains. What is the significance of this proverb? That many women, their talents are unseen. They don't speak up. They don't have the condition, they don't have the confidence. All this is because of the social conditioning, the mindset of the people generally. So once you give them the opportunity, once you give them the confidence, they can move mountains. That means they can make a lot of effect. And I expect this to happen. So far as our constitution is concerned, the courts are the interpreter of the constitution. And they have been interpreting the constitution to give relief to many women. Earlier, there was a discriminatory rule. I think my Sambandhi here, Mr. Gauri-Shankar Ghosh, will be able to apprise me. In the Indian Foreign Service, there was a rule which prohibited women from getting married without taking permission. It only applied to women. It did not apply to the men. There are many men who landed up marrying foreigners also, persons who were not Indian citizens. But Supreme Court, in the case of Muthamma, C. Muthamma versus Union of India, struck down this rule as unconstitutional. There was another discriminatory rule which was there for a long, long time. This applied to the air hostesses who used to be grounded immediately on their pregnancy or after childbirth. In the case of Nargis Mirza, this rule was held to be discriminatory and unconstitutional. In 1996 or 1997, the Supreme Court delivered its judgment in Vishakha versus the state of Rajasthan. This was a real landmark judgment which dealt with the problem of sexual harassment. There were some provisions in the penal laws which dealt with rape, molestation, but the Supreme Court recognized that there could even be harassment without touching the victim. Think of a situation where one or two women join the legal fraternity, and then they have a seat in a bar room which is full of men. If these men crack lewd jokes among themselves, make comments, make insinuations, would it be possible for the girls in the minority to give their best to the profession? No. Then, of course, talking about general mindset, general social discrimination, I cannot but help but refer to some personal experiences. I was the third of three daughters, the youngest of three daughters. And as the youngest of 3 daughters, I definitely know what social discrimination is. Just shortly after I was born, my eldest sister, who incidentally happens to be Mrs. Monica Chattopadhyay's aunt, Mamima, she was about 10 years older than me. So a 10-year-old child remarked, Mummy, Mummy. I was a roly-poly child. So I said, Mummy, Mummy, look, my sister's fair and she has pink lips. She won't have to buy lipstick when she grows up. So my mother was in splits. When my mother was laughing, a relative through marriage, not even a very close relative, commented. I'm translating it into my broken Hindi for the benefit of everyone who's here. My mother's name was Bani. Bani, खूब तो हंस रही हो, तीसरी बेटी हुई है, 50-50 हजार रुपया बैंक में जमा करो, डाउरी देना पड़ेगा तो उसके बाद हंसना. This was a comment which was made. Then, when I was about 7, 8, when my sister was about 18, almost of marriageable age herself by the standards of the 60s, there used to be people who would ask, how many children do you have? My mother would say 3 daughters. And they would say, oh, ek bhi beta nahi. So sad. Is baar jarur beta hoga. And my mother would jump up and say, no, thank you. I don't want any children at this age. Incidentally, my mother's sister, 2 of my mother's sisters were educated in England, and one of them came back and practiced and was later elevated as a judge of the Calcutta High Court. She was the first of 2 women to be appointed judge of Calcutta High Court in 1977. When she was being sent abroad to do her bar, my mother's uncle, my mother's father's elder brother, had remarked that my grandfather, who was a doctor, his name was also Sarat Chandra Chattopadhyay. Sarat has lost his head. He has gone mad. He's sending his daughters abroad. Will she come back and become judge magistrate? She did become a judge when she came back. So you really have to give the women opportunity. Having been a lawyer for 15 and a half years before my elevation as a judge, I have a tendency to go on and on. So somebody should please stop me when it is time for me to stop. Otherwise, I would perhaps just go on and on. I think I should generally end. What is really required today is that the people who are responsible for implementing the Constitution should be sincere in their effort. Many of the Constitution makers, Dr. B.R. Ambedkar, Dr. Rajendra Prasad, many of the ladies I named, Begum Aizaz Rasool, in their speech, they all said that how a constitution functions depends on the people who are responsible for implementation of the constitution. Action is more important than words. Mere words do not help. And there has to be a change of mindset. I have often been asked, and whenever my biodata is read out, thank God those things were not read out today. It is one of the things which are said are that I was the second woman to become Chief Justice of Madras High Court. I became Chief Justice of Madras High Court 165 years after Madras High Court was established. They say I was the 8th woman to become a judge of the Supreme Court. I became the 8th woman in 2018, 68 years after the Constitution came into force. I was only the 6th woman to be elevated as a judge of Calcutta High Court in 2002, which is again 52 years after the Constitution came into force. But why is this? This is probably, to a great extent, because of the general mindset about the traditional roles which have been attributed to men and women, where men have been considered as breadwinners and women have been considered as homemakers. And many brilliant women could not pursue careers. I probably achieved what I did because of the default of many others. It's 8 o'clock. It's time for tea. Thank you very much. I only pray that Shotenda is happy, at peace, wherever he is today. And wherever he may be, I wish him a happy birthday. Tomorrow is his birthday. The room was not available tomorrow. Thank you very much for the patient hearing.
Thank you so very much, Justice Banerjee, for this both enlightening as well as engaging lecture on this subject, and the critical question of whether it is mere rhetoric or actually a harsh but an optimistic reality. I have a few takeaways from here. The most important thing you said was that a lot of what we have as laws for ourselves are interpretations and implementations at the ground level. And unless the people who are interpreting law, people who are interpreting the Constitution, and the people who are implementing what they take as their interpretations, unless they have the right, unless they carry the right mindset, I guess it will continue to be a rhetoric and not really become reality. You talked about opportunity and education, absolutely right. And most importantly, you said that rights are meaningless unless there is a remedy. So the legal system and the constitution does provide you the remedy, but I guess again it's on us, society at large, and unfortunately it rests on us men to ensure that we actually, the remedies are there, but we give access to all the remedies available, through law, through society, and through the general social fabric. Thank you very much for this engaging session. As we're about to close the inaugural S.N. Chattopadhyay Memorial Lecture, I would actually request my mother if she could just slowly and steadily step forward, because she's 83 years old. Okay, and to thank Justice Banerjee and to thank Professor Dr. K.G. Suresh through a small token. This is for Justice Banerjee. Professor Dr. Suresh, thank you so much. And also a token of appreciation to Tapasya, who's been so fabulous through the evening. I thank the India Habitat Center, and I actually want to make a special mention of a few people. I want to mention Priyanka ma'am. Okay. Okay, Snehal Sharma. Thank you so much. I would specifically like to thank Priyanka ma'am at Suresh sir's office for all her support. I would want to make a special mention of Uzma, Naresh, Prerna, Shadab, and Swati for all their help, all their coordination, supervision, suggestions, for this evening. On behalf of the Samarpan Foundation, which is actually our family foundation, and thankfully we've activated it now. Okay, my mother and I thank each one of you for being with us today. The little thank you card in front of you is our way of expressing our gratitude for you spending your time with us. So we would love it if you actually carry the card back home. We now invite all of you to tea, coffee, and refreshments served right outside the hall in the Jacaranda Hall foyer. These are some of my father's favorite dishes at the India Habitat Center. Oh yes, there are many more. Take care and see you next year. Thank you so very much.